Before I start, I just want to reference it's not anxiety, it's excitement, because we've said that twice. I was on Instagram last night, not doom scrolling, but scrolling. And I saw this really cute smiley face talking about anxiety and excitement. And apparently your bodily response to both of them are the same. It's how you deal with it in your head. So that was the first thing I said when I got to this table over here. I said, right, we've just got to convince ourselves that this is just so exciting. And do you know what? It really is. The opportunity to be able to talk to people about your experiences, your lessons, your learns, your career. What an opportunity for me to be with all of you today. So thank you for having me. Today, I want to talk about why inclusion should include everybody. And my first question to everyone is, why doesn't it? Why do people feel excluded when we talk about inclusion? Why do people see it as a threat? Why don't we have the ability to be able to stand here on stage and say, yes, everyone, look at the gender balance we've achieved in the last few years. Look at the ethnicity balance. Look at what we're doing for disability inclusion. And shout out to the team here for having transcripts, by the way. Super important. I struggle with my hearing, so being able to look at that was brilliant. But also, I know it's so good for lots of different people for lots of different reasons. And these are great things to say that we're moving forward, but we are definitely not moving at the pace that we want to be. So what I wanted to do today was to talk to you about my visibility, what I have seen over the years, because I'm absolutely convinced that actually it's so important that we are all here today, but what about the people that aren't here today? And, you know, when you think about people that go to class, right, or go to school, who's in the front row? Well, we're all front row today, aren't we? But who just kind of popped in at the back? Who is kind of inclusion curious, but maybe don't have the confidence to get involved? Or actually, they don't believe in it at all. And they need to say what they think. They need to understand what they're really thinking underneath in a way where we can then talk and understand them back. There was a lot said earlier about connections and listening and being kind. And we all know right now we're in a cancel culture. It's difficult for people to talk. So what I wanted to do was actually open your eyes to my visibility. I have worked in the recruitment industry for 20 years, always in financial services, technology, fintech. I could tell the stories I could tell you. Back in 2005, when I started in the industry, I was shocked, absolutely shocked. Every room I walked into, I was like, I just don't understand. Like I seem to feel othered here, and I seem to feel a little bit alone. I wonder why that is. Because I was the one. Every time I met a client, I was meeting the same demographic. Every time I went back to the office and asked questions like, where are all the women? And, you know, why is it that when I represent a female CV, it's overlooked like that? Or if any woman actually gets an interview, she suddenly has a load more hoops that she has to jump through. I was 20, just finished my master's at uni, you know, thought I knew it all, absolutely didn't. And I was told to be quiet and get on with the job. I put my head down and my absolute honest, I put my blinkers on and I learned how to do recruitment. I obviously didn't stay in that company that long. And I decided that I wanted to do something about this. And what I figured out, by the time we get to 2010, I figured out that I'm no one's exit interview. So I'm hearing why people are leaving jobs, the real reason why people are leaving jobs. More importantly, I'm hearing what could have been different for them to stay, what people really needed. Now, when we all think about the letters DEI, think about the first time that you actually heard that. The first time in the workplace that we started talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because by 2010, when I realized that actually I'm a founder of a business with 3 others, and actually who's going to sort this out if it isn't going to be me? At that point, DEI wasn't really getting spoken about that much. I couldn't really verbalize what I wanted to do or how I wanted to do it, but I knew that I had to start my research. And I come from a background of mixed heritage, mixed religion. I had my experiences growing up. Everybody was involved, from all genders to all ages to social mobility. That was my norm. So joining this industry and being privy and witnessing what I witnessed, I was utterly shocked. And because I'm stubborn, I stayed in it, right? That's a whole other story which we can talk over coffee. But one thing I want to start with is diversity and its inclusion are two very, very different things. And I think when people talk to people like me in talent, they often will talk about diversity and the visibility of that diversity. They don't necessarily think about inclusion. So I think the reason why I was invited here today is not necessarily to talk about my career, but to talk about what I have learnt and what I have seen in how different companies and different people are including, and also what they're missing out on when they're not including. And for me, this is so important, because when we think about our industry and we think about it as an ecosystem, it's super important, and this is my talent lens on, super important that we're not just attracting people into the ecosystem, but retaining them, progressing them, promoting them, dare I say, paying them fairly. But these are the things, and there was a conversation earlier about self-promotion and the tiara syndrome. These are the things that matter day in, day out. And these are the things that are not necessarily diversity, it's the inclusion of it, and it's our perception of it. So I wanted just to open up with a few stats. We all know. If you don't know, welcome. Let's have a look. And the reason why I wanted to put these stats forward is because I think these are basically where our inclusion efforts across the industry have been so far. I think that, people think about representation first and foremost. We're obviously looking at pay, but that is going backwards. In the UK today, the average on the gender pay gap is 12.1 in financial services. We're at the absolute worst at 26.2. We're getting worse in terms of that representation, but we are starting to look at promotion. We are starting to realise an awareness and at least talk about the fact of what happens to women as they become more and more experienced within the workplace. And this point on retention I've been talking about, but this to me is such a shocking statistic, and I can share with the room the article from Bloomberg that I read this. And I see this. This is what I see every day. This is why I'm constantly looking at the revolving door. And whether I'm looking at it from an ethnicity point of view, disability point of view, gender point of view, whatever point of view, I'm really focused on understanding inclusivity from all different points of view. But this is something that I really focus on, the retention of people, the investment of people, the promotion of people, how fair we are recognising people in the workplace. And I wanted to talk about just a little bit of how I've got this awareness and this visibility. And it's not just people calling me up saying I'm looking to leave. It's actually the way that I've really focused on wanting to help people ask for promotion, even when they have imposter syndrome and don't want to. When they're that quieter person in the room doing all the work and no one put them forward. I loved what you said about putting people forward, backing people, believing in people, questioning yourself. Who do I trust in this business? Who do I back? Like next time there's a promotion conversation, who are you going to put forward? And why don't we put more people forward? Because no man ever said, oh, I better not put forward another bloke because they'll just think that I'm putting forward a bloke. But how many women have thought that? How many people from ethnic minorities have thought that? And we've got to change these things if we're going to be thinking about changing the entire ecosystem. I'm part of a government digital task force, and they taught me that it will take us over 100 years to reach parity if we are just focusing on the beginning of the funnel and bringing women into the industry. That is just too long, and it's because we're not focusing on who's leaving and why they're leaving. So when we think about how inclusion has evolved, I just wanted to show this graph and share some of my perceptions on it and go back to that question I asked you, when was the first time that you even heard of DEI in the workplace? When did you start feeling, wow, DEI is everywhere, right? It's the trend. When did you start feeling it's not the trend anymore? And now it's gone off hot topic. And actually, we've got some anti-DEI conversation going on. When did that happen? And, these bullet points that I put here, in the pandemic, we had a whole focus on well-being, looking after staff. We also, in this industry, started to face some talent shortages. And when there's talent shortages, and this is the sort of barometer that I always say, if I was to say to a CEO 2.5 years ago, tomorrow 10% of your staff are about to quit, that CEO would have, held onto the table and gone, oh, tell me, what do I need to do? How do I make them stay? Who needs promotion? Who needs pay rise? Do the DEI committees, do they need more money? If I was to say that to a CEO tomorrow, they'd say, maybe that would help my bottom line. Maybe the other people can cover their work. There wouldn't be that stress. And so, look, I know I'm coming from a talent perspective, but right now we have higher unemployment than we've had. And the truth is being shown on who really cares about their people policies, who really cares about investing in their staff fairly. And I think this is going to have a knock-on effect when the market does start up next year, have a knock-on effect on the trust people have in our industry, in our ecosystem, the belief that people have in their companies. So I'm always imploring businesses to invest in people, invest in people, invest in people. And what we have seen in this market downturn, we've seen women hit harder than men in redundancies. The US is producing lots of data on this. There's only little bits and pieces in the UK. But I speak to 30 women a week who are applying to roles through our company. Not about those roles, I talk to them about their experience. I'm also on episode 482 of my podcast series called FinTech's DEI Discussions, mainly with women, talking about what their career looked like, the challenges that they face, the challenges they have now. Some of this obviously isn't on the podcast because there's some private stuff that happens afterwards. But this is vast volumes of people telling me what's going on. And day in, day out, I'm meeting companies and understanding what they are doing to invest in their people. So we are going through changes when it comes to inclusion. And the positive changes aren't moving fast enough. I believe because not everybody is involved. And the crazy thing to me is that there is this really clear connection. You read Gartner, you read EY, you read anywhere, you read the positives of everybody being included, the positives of people being treated fairly in the workplace, the positives of listening to different people's point of view and their perspectives and being able to handle challenges better. There is this very clear connection, and I call it the inclusion success connection. It's so clear. You can't deny it. But we are not connecting that with the reality of how we make decisions in the workplace. And again, I think we're all front row in here. We all get it, and it's a bit about what you said, in your network, have people that don't get it, have people that wind you up. When you said that, I thought of somebody at an event, and I remember being stuck with him thinking, why are you telling me these things? It's highly offensive to me. Like, where do you think I'm from, But actually, very nice way of looking at it. This is what we want to do to be stronger. But this sort of inclusion, innovation, connection, we're not turning it into a reality. So I'm really against loads of words on a slide, as you can see. But with this one, I couldn't make it any different. So I just want you to have a look at this. I want you to have a look at the grey tick boxes, because I think this is something that gets us and has got us and is holding us back as an industry, because we talk about quotas, awards, making sure the logos are, A-OK, gender-neutral adverts, bias training, new policies, diverse interview panels, the poor ethnic minorities and the poor women that just get rolled out again for the diverse interview panels. I've been there many a time, ticking so many boxes myself. And then you think about how much are we actually achieving with this? I'm going to put this into perspective, because at the moment, many people will look at this side. And by the way, one thing I said to my husband a few weeks ago, I said to him, do you remember how much I used to say I can't bear only quotas when it comes to people trying to move forward inclusion in their workplaces? He said, yeah. And I said, well, do you know what's worse than that? No quotas at all. And actually that is where we have started to go. So I am not saying all of this is rubbish, but what I am saying is that I think so far we have focused on just sort of ticking it, feeling good. I've done that. The gender neutral adverts, brilliant. We've achieved something. When actually we all know that there are so many different personality types, so many different demographics, so many different things that people need. And actually, dare I say it as a recruiter, I don't believe in adverts. I don't believe in job descriptions. I think we should rip it all up and start completely again, including CVs. Because I think there's too many things in our ecosystem that we do that were set up 100 years ago, set up by a certain demographic who lived a certain way, and we're still trying to fit into that system, rather than let's forget that system existed. If we all look at it in our situations right now, with the nursery calls just before I got here today, with the panic of how do I fix this, how do I fix that, and we try and work it around the system of work now, it would look very different to what it does now. But back to this point, the inclusion tick boxes are often this, when actually, if we could look on this side, if we could actually look at policies that people feel safe to take up. Paternity leave is a wonderful example of this. I work with, and I know so many businesses that have amazing paternity leave policies. Do any of the blokes take them up? Absolutely not. Because one of the CEOs or the MDs have gone, oh, are you serious about your job? Boom, that's the end of it. Might as well not have that, right? And this is the reality, because we can do so many of these great things on this side, but if we're not having the CEO or the MD going off on paternity leave and saying, right, everyone, I don't feel guilty about this at all because I have worked out a full program of what's going to happen in my absence, and I'm going to see you here. And you know what? That may change, because who knows when it comes to kids. But when did any of us ever see that, right? So how are we going to build this confidence, this change? Promotion gap assessments, looking at performance reviews of how inclusive managers are being. Like where is that? There are some companies, by the way, that do that. But where is it? Why isn't it our norm? Why don't we treat inclusion like a change program? In any of your businesses, if a new product was coming in or a new way of working, everybody would be around that new way of working. All of us would have a job on it. But instead, inclusion is on a few people's shoulders as an add-on to get on with it in the evening, and you'll make us all feel like we've done what we need to. Voices that are heard at the table, fair pay reviews, actual interest in different perspectives without feeling anger or cancel. Like, let's talk about it, let's understand. Confidence courses in women. So let me explain what I mean about this. So I know we all love to talk about, right, confidence, let's get women on confidence courses, we've all got imposter syndrome, 100%. But I don't actually think that's the main problem. I think the main problem is everyone's confidence in me. It was something you said there as well, you're dancing on the stage. Oh, thank God that wasn't decided on. But the point is, why is it if I'm standing here and my male colleague is standing next to me, why is it that so many of us would be looking at him thinking that he is my boss, or he's the one that's more knowledgeable? Why would we make that assumption? And we're all just as guilty of it as one another, holding people in different regards, expecting things that are different. We've all got to change. We've all got to, and any change is really difficult, but I don't think that we've really changed enough. And this is where I want to talk about exclusion. Because one thing I've learned in the last year is that inclusion has really, really struggled to be taken up by so many people. And I've had a couple of conversations, and this is in the pursuit of having lots of different types of people in my network, so I can learn from people that don't really believe in inclusion, think it's a fad, think it's a luxury item, don't really understand what I do and why I do it, and don't think I'll ever be successful because I put inclusion in everything that I do. But I've really, and that's tough. It's tough talking to people about that. But I've spent a lot of time, and there's a load of surveys and a load of research as well. There's one in particular where 20,000 white men were interviewed about DEI, and 70% of them felt that they were excluded and that they couldn't really be part of it. I think this is a really, really dangerous thing, because if we look back at the statistics of who's in this industry, we've all got to be in this together. And I totally believe in differences, perspectives, and intersectionality. And I do believe there's a place for specific groups where you can feel safe and talk to one another. But at the same time, we also need the groups where we come together. And if anyone's got kids, give your kid 2 sweets, take away 1. We've all been there. And the reason why I wanted to put the two apples there is because this is what I hear time and time again when I'm on this journey to try and understand, how can I get more people in the room? How can I get more of the demographic that has really succeeded in this industry for many, many years? How can I get them to talk to me about this and be active? And the reality is there's lots of feelings of negativity. There's lots of feelings of threat, of something being taken away. And I do think it's a lot of the cancel culture that we have that's to do with that. I do think that when we talk about allyship, and when we talk about conversation, when we talk about openness and transparency, we all kind of need to go into that zone where it's in the pits of your stomach and you're hearing something that you don't necessarily want to hear, but your initial response of, I don't want to hear this and you are wrong, I think we need to work on that, all of us. And that's what I've been trying to work on. And I won't say that it's easy, but we cannot have so many people in the industry feeling excluded by this, and feeling that they are going to have something taken away from them. And I think what ends up happening are some of these conversations. So I'm constantly going and talking to companies, and I get the phrase, oh, Nadia, she was wonderful, but, I just want the best person for the job. Excellent. The best person for the job, because, of course, she couldn't be the best person for the job, could she? Then you hear other people in businesses when a woman doesn't work out, she wasn't qualified for the job anyway, she just ticked a box, and you think, wow, well then how in this world was she ever going to survive in that company with people like you around her that didn't believe in the power of her diversity of thought? I'm tired of this woke chat. I just need to push the business forward. These are some of the I know, and I put it up on a slide. I know, but I thought I wanted to be honest here. This is what people are saying. Nadia, I don't have time for inclusion right now. Look, we just need profits. And these were people 2.5 years ago who were, they're applauding me, saying, oh, I love that you've written a book about inclusion, and it's really clear on all the steps that we can be taking to drive inclusion in the workplace. But you didn't do it. You didn't walk the talk, and that was the name of my book. Everyone loves to talk about this, but who's going to actually walk the talk? Because it's hard, and it needs all of us. And I think everything that I've been saying, I think we've missed out the why again. I think we've gone straight to business profits. I think we've forgotten about justice. I think we've forgotten about fairness. I think we've just forgotten about the fact that the world is different to what it was 100 years ago. What was it? The 37-hour week with someone at home doing all the food and the kids and da-da-da. It's not how it is nowadays. Everything's changed. Why don't we look at that why? Look at how can we make a thriving workplace that people are excited to go into, that people aren't afraid to hear someone disagree with them, where there's positive debate day in, day out, where someone can say, look, I just don't agree with you, and this is why I feel threatened. And we just seem so far away from that right now. But this is what I wanted to say to all of you, because you're here today. This is stuff that you care about day in, day out. Imagine if we could all bring one person in that just does not believe in this at all, right? If every single one of us could get one person in and have a conversation where they actually feel free to say that to you and you don't combust. But imagine if we could have that. And then imagine if there's, that person that's sort of inclusion curious, if we could bring them in. Imagine if they could bring somebody else in. And I think that's where the real stuff starts to happen. That's where we can have fair pay reviews, fair promotions, fair recognition, recognizing different personality types. So inclusion to include everyone, I go back to what you said. I think we've got to listen, and I think we've got to be kind. And I think we've got to be real about this. Like, just ticking those boxes, it's not going to get us to where we need to get to, nowhere near as quick as we should do. And we're all holding ourselves back, doing ourselves a disservice. And one of the really, really interesting things, and I'll leave you on this, from my podcast, is whenever I speak to cybersecurity experts, they always say to me, if you don't have inclusion, you are at a risk. They treat it like a cybersecurity risk. That's the way they look at it. And I think we've forgotten that as well. You know, like, why don't we want to hear all the views and all the perspectives and then choose the best one? So thank you, everybody, for listening to me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Nadia. We have a couple of minutes for some questions, but there's a lot that came through on this session. So Nadia is going to be happy to also answer a question after the sessions on Credit Strategy's website. So the first one up, Nadia, how has remote hybrid working impacted inclusion efforts, both positively and negatively?
I'll start positively. I'll share a bit of a story for me, but also it'll be a really nice one just to show all the new options. So when we went into lockdown, I was 8 months pregnant, and I planned to take 3 months off. But being one of the founders of the business, and you know, like no one was hiring, right? I was like, I need to get back to work, and there was absolutely no way that our office environment had a culture of anyone working from home, right? But it was forced. And I had a little baby girl that was very happy to be in a sling. And you know what? I recorded a number of podcasts. Like, if you listen to podcasts of sort of, you know, April onwards of 2020, you may hear a little meh, because like she was on me. But I would just do that as I was recording a podcast for someone, and she would be, you know, quiet enough. Reason why I share that story is because I would never have had that option. I would never have had that chance to show, look at what I can do. And actually, I'm really happy. I'm happy being able to do this. And just talking to so many people about that was amazing to hear that they felt the same, given a choice. And what's really sad right now is that so many people are having that choice taken away from them. You know, this time 2 years ago, probably 80% of our roles were fully remote or hybrid, whereas now that's switched the other way, only 20%. So many companies are saying, we need you back in the office, you know, as if that's the magic catch-all answer to any problem right now.
And one last question, Nadia. There has been a pushback against positive discrimination, and woke has become an insult. How can we push for positive change without being labeled?
So I think this goes back to the why. And also, I don't think people really understand what the words positive discrimination mean. Like, that's something that I've really spent a lot of time with people on. Positive action and positive discrimination are two very different things. But what really makes me afraid is that whole, you know, when I was describing like some people who are sort of knocking on the door, they want to get involved, that group, that huge group of people, often men who want to get involved and being really good allies and want to be more inclusive, the minute they start doing anything positive action-wise, like I want to see better representation of women at CV stage, for example, it's really easy for another bloke to say, oh, careful, positive discrimination, and bang, we've lost that. Like, the quickest way to lose an ally is to mislabel the situation, and they retreat so quickly. So I would just love a bit more confidence around that. And I think that confidence comes from everyone in here, really, when you're bringing somebody along.
Thank you once again, Nadia.
Thank you.